Hello, this is Belinda Colleen, and I'm back to talk to you today about reselling, one of my favorite things to do. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about three top reselling secrets that all retirees like myself know. It's instinctive, it's a life lesson, it's things that we picked up over life. Sometimes we forget it, sometimes we have to remind ourselves. But if you can hang on to these ideas, it will solve all of the little problems that you have in your reselling business. Because I think a lot of times it's about courage. Starting a new business is about courage, and it's about hanging in there and getting a little smarter every day. The first quote that I'd like to start with that people have embraced throughout the business community is that knowledge is power. And this quote was attributed to Sir Francis Bacon from many years ago. And we've heard it said over and over again, knowledge is power. And so what we can take from that, it sounds fundamental, of course, but we have to remind ourselves of that when we start a business in particular. We can't expect, and this is where I think sometimes older people have an advantage over people that are just getting started. We've learned throughout our lifetime, if we're over 40 or 50 or 60, that there is no substitute for getting as much knowledge as you can. That is where you'll learn how to grow your business and just even start your business. And in order, though, to maintain the energy level and the optimism that you need to succeed in any business, and especially in reselling, it's very, very important to just try to learn a little bit every single day. You're not going to learn it all at once. I know when I first started this business, I jumped on YouTube and watched about 1,000 videos. And oh my goodness, it was exhausting, but it was also energizing. And I did pick up some great ideas. And I also picked up some ideas that maybe are no longer valid because a lot of the information can be very specific. If you watch a video from 3 years ago about how to sell on eBay, you'll probably find it's quite a bit different than what they're saying today. While buying and selling is pretty basic, it's a basic business model in a ton of industries. The details is definitely where you'll win or lose the game. So always knowing that you have to learn. This isn't a stale business. It's not a stagnant business. You can't just learn everything and then sit back and relax and say, okay, I got it. You can't do that. So I like that, though. See, because I enjoy learning, and I always have. I was kind of a nerd in school, and I always was one of those kids that liked school. And but now at this point in my life, I'm finding that I really, instead of sitting behind a desk or something like that and doing something that's almost entirely on the computer, which is what I was doing, I would much rather get out in the world and do things and exercise more. I was just telling my mother the other day that I've got steps up to my house, and going up and down the steps, carrying all my stuff, carrying it in from the thrift store or wherever I buy it, taking it out to mail it, all of that. I feel like I'm getting a lot more exercise, and I think that's great. And I need to do that because I feel so much better when I get more exercise. But if you'll hang on to the idea, just say, every time you have a challenge that you have to dig into, even if you don't want to, just remember knowledge is power. And if you can keep that in the forefront of your mind, it will drive you in the right direction. Being hesitant and not wanting to learn and not wanting to change can be something that happens to all of us. And sometimes older people are almost expected to become that way, kind of like, well, I've already worked. I've done my life's work. I'm just going to relax and enjoy the fruits of my labor. That is an attitude. And there's nothing wrong with that attitude if that makes you happy. If you just are content sitting on the front porch and in your rocking chair and just watching the world go by. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I would go crazy myself if I lived that way from day to day to day to day. And of course, if you are interested in making some income on the side, you're going to have to make some effort. And reselling is one of the toughest businesses, quite frankly, that I've started in terms of all the demands that are placed on you mentally and physically. And part of it, I think, is just a function of the fact, especially the mental changes, that things are changing so rapidly now. Technology has put everything on this, crazy fast track that's beyond anything I can remember. I was in the mortgage industry. I was a recruiter for a long time. And I also worked as a writer the last half of my formal public career, working for a company, an editor and a writer. And honestly, I've never seen anything change as fast as reselling has since I've only been in it 2 years. And that's because the trends change, the fashions change, the resources that you can use change, the technology changes. A lot of the fast pace that we're all trying to deal with and make changes with relate directly to technology, I think. And AI is going to be a big deal. And you just can't be scared of it. You just have to embrace it. I've started putting my toe in the water on that and trying to be positive about it instead of resenting it and thinking, oh, another thing I've got to learn. And I'm not saying I don't ever do that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's like, oh, please, I just want something to be the same for 2 days. But we all know that that's not the way the world works. And you just have to adopt a better attitude about it. And honestly, one of the things that I've been trying to do, I take this is my little notepad. I carry it with me when I go shopping. It's got bolos in it for all the different categories so that I can look them up. Like if I go into the jeans section, it kind of is a cheat sheet for me. And I know that you could do it on your phone. And of course, I'll dig in and probably look things up if they're on my list or if they're aesthetic that's on my list, because I'm sourcing by brands and aesthetics now, which has really made it a lot easier, because a lot of the Bolo brands are be on the lookout for, which is what Bolo stands for, are hard to find. And you could go an entire week and not find but maybe 1 or 2 things that are on your Bolo list. And that's not enough to really run a business on unless you're selling $5,000 purses or something. But if you're like most of us and you're living off of the, $25 to $50 range of items, which is what people are willing to spend, you're going to have to get more creative about your sourcing. And that's why the aesthetic sourcing has been great for me. And that's something I learned about 2 months ago. And it's really been so wonderful. I thought, wow, I wish I would have known this when I first started. But, I'm learning every day and I'm making a commitment to do that. And I probably watch at least 1 video a day when I'm packing up my things to take them out to ship, or when I'm cooking, or whatever, prepping some of my items, I'll have a video on. And while I do find that sometimes the videos can contradict each other, I know that's just the way life is. And I have trusted sources on YouTube that I listen to that I feel comfortable with. The way they communicate speaks to me and I can understand what they're saying. And my business model is similar to theirs. So when they speak to me, I feel like it's more relevant. And I think that matters. I mean, as a part-time reseller, I really believe that it's different for part-time resellers than it is for full-time resellers as far as business models that will work and ideas that make sense for part-timers versus ideals that make sense for people who are in warehouses and have employees. It's a different business model. And while I find it fascinating, I have no interest in full-time reselling. Not at this point in my life. Although sometimes it does feel like a full-time job. It depends on the week you talk to me. So I say that people my age, older people, know inherently that knowledge is power. As long as you've been alive, you know that, you've seen that in your life, and you just have to remind yourself of that every time you hit a challenge where you've got to dig in and learn something new. And in fact, getting a jump on it and learning it sooner rather than later is easier on you, I think. Um, the second secret is that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Now, I love this quote. It's attributed to Neil Donald Walsh, and I love it. I think it's a great quote, and you really have to think about it a minute. But I know for me, the most exciting times in my life, whether it's about business or relationships, where I live, vacations, the best was always the beginning. It was when I first started something new. It was a combination of anxiety and excitement, living a little bit on the edge, forcing myself to do things that I'd never done before. Uh, and that's not easy for me. Sometimes I don't want to do it. And in fact, I just started on YouTube back at the very end of November. So I've only been doing this for not even 2 months yet. And I started off super ambitious. I thought I'm going to do a video every day. Well, life caught up with me, and now, I'm trying to do 2 a week. So, reality had to set in, and I tend to be that way. I start off with all this energy uh, because I'm excited about it, but I'm nervous about it too. And getting on YouTube, I was a little nervous about it. Although I did some public speaking in the jobs that I had, where I had to give presentations and that type of thing, I was always nervous. And YouTube is not quite as bad because there's no one staring at me, and I can always shut this and stop talking and not put this one out there. And I think that gives me a little more, I don't know, more of an ability to relax about it, because it's kind of like I could do this live and it would be quicker for me because it would cut out some stages, but then all my mistakes would be right up there and I wouldn't have any chance to say, okay, this one's not going up because it's not that good. And I still have an awful lot to learn, and I still haven't learned how to edit. But with reselling, it was the same thing. And every time I try something new, like I just signed up on Depop. Never been on Depop before, so it was a new platform. Seems pretty simple though so far. And later today, I'm going to sign up for Nifty, so that I can start cross-listing and have them on both. I started off just putting a few things on Depop that I didn't put on eBay until I get the cross-listing service set up, because I don't want to sell something by mistake in 2 places, which probably wouldn't happen that often, but I'm sure if it's a good item, it could happen. So anyway, you have to remember, if you're a little bit nervous about it, you just have to do it. Take action. Just stumble through it. Everybody does it. And the nice thing about being a seasoned person in the world that's seen a few decades behind them is that we know intuitively that the exciting things and personal growth and business growth is always connected directly to being a little uncomfortable, because you're trying something new, you're doing something new. And these days, it's just the way operation is going to be, period. There's no more, oh, here's the business model, just follow this and you'll be fine. There's no more of that. The business model changes constantly. You might have a basic business model. In reselling, you obviously could be a high volume seller or high ticket item, high ticket seller and sell a lower volume, or somewhere in the middle of that. I try to balance that and have a lot of items that are in that, $25 to $50 to $60 category. That's where I live. And then I get lucky sometimes and find things that are worth 100 or 150 or something like that. And that's exciting, of course. But I don't think I can live off of that, because I haven't, my sourcing skills are not that refined yet. And honestly, even though the treasure hunt is a lot of the fun, I think my experience has shown me that the higher the price of the item, uh, sometimes the customer service gets a little bit harder with the customer. They expect perfection. They ask a million questions. If you're selling something for $200 or $250 versus selling something for $20, where they just buy it. A lot more often they just buy it. Now, I'm not saying that I don't have a lot of people trying to get me to come down on those low prices, because I do, but I just don't usually go for it unless I just really need some cash flow and just want to get rid of it because I've had it too long. Um, the third thing, and this is the thing that people in their 40s and 50s and 60s especially need to embrace and get excited about, in 70s, I don't mean to cut anybody out, is that there is no substitute for experience. Albert Einstein says it this way. He says, the only source of knowledge is experience. Now, I don't know if you can relate to me on this one, but boy, almost every lesson that sticks with me and that has always stuck with me is something I learned through experience. And sometimes it was bad experience. So unfortunately, sometimes I'm one of those people that has to learn things the hard way. I may hear people saying it, chattering around me, and I may not even listen to them because I'm trying to be positive and optimistic, and I don't want to dwell on what could happen, all the bad things, the sky's falling and all that. I don't want to think like that, and I don't want to be that person. But sometimes it sets me up for a big mistake. And so I guess my point is, we've all, if you've lived 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 years, your experience has taught you the most valuable lessons, and there is no substitute for experience. You can watch 1,000 videos on YouTube. You can do a ton of research, but there is, in reselling, I'd say it's so true. There is no substitute for learning on the job. And the people on YouTube, they don't tell you everything. I don't tell you everything because I don't think of everything and I don't know everything. Nobody does. And so much of this, opportunity, it's a business. It's got ups and downs, and it changes daily. I mean, not a lot daily, but it depends on the day, right? And I think you have to remember that. And so while you can compare yourself to the people that have warehouses with 20 or 30,000 items in their inventory, the thing you need to remember is that your business model, your goals are the only thing that matter, and you can only learn the most valuable lessons through experience. I think of myself when I first started in the reselling world, and I know so much more now, so much more. I understand how to negotiate better. I understand about business policies better. In fact, I just changed one of my business policies, and I'm very happy about it. I was doing, and I'm not telling anybody what they should do. I'm just sharing my experience, and you can take with it what you want. I changed my shipping or my refund policy to the buyer pays shipping. So in other words, you're going to get your 30-day refund guarantee, but you're going to pay for shipping on the way back. Because I just felt like I was getting hosed, and I felt like it was just too easy for these people just to say, oh, what the heck. It's not, I thought it was going to be a little different shade of pink, or I thought this, or I thought that, any reason, or I changed my mind. That's my favorite. I changed my mind. So I want a refund. Now, if they have a little ouch on that, just a little one, like they have to pay for shipping, it changes things. And I've already seen that it changes things. I had a girl that said, and unfortunately it was before I had changed my policy, but I wasn't going to make it easier on her. And, because it was a bogus thing. She had canceled on me. And because, well, I had to make her cancel because she had the wrong address in there. And then so she canceled, and then she reordered, and then she got it and decided that she didn't like it, and that it wasn't a perfect fit. It was a little bit too long. It was a blouse. So it was an inexpensive blouse. So she contacts me and she goes, I see you pay for shipping. And I was still paying for shipping at that point. And I said, yes. I said, what's the problem? I was a little irritated, to be honest, and this is all happening via email or messaging on eBay. And so she said, well, I said, you've got 30 days. She goes, it just doesn't fit perfectly. And I know I've been a lot of trouble to you because I gave the wrong address and then we had to cancel. And I thought, yes, you have been a lot of trouble. I didn't say that to her, but in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, you have been a lot of trouble. But so I kept thinking it was interesting that I never saw the refund go through, but I wasn't going to do it for her. I said, you'll just have to, put in for a refund, and then they'll give you a shipping label. But I didn't explain it to her. Maybe I should have, but I was kind of like, you know what? This is the most BS reason for returning something I've ever heard of, and I'm going to get hosed on shipping both ways and everything else. So she contacts me maybe a week and a half later and says, well, I've decided to keep it. It wasn't that much, and by the time I go to the trouble of shipping it back and whatever, and she didn't even have to pay for shipping. So, and I'd watched a few other people that say they don't pay for shipping back. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to pay for shipping back. I'm already doing the best I can, but I'm not going to pay for shipping back. They're going to have to go to a little effort. After I've gone to a lot of effort to take care of them, they're going to have to go to a little effort to get that refund. And I'm sure I'm going to still get refunds. And it's not like I get a ton of refunds. I really don't. But I'm just not going to, I decided I want to give good customer service, but I don't want to take it on the chin all the time. And I'm going to make the customer do a little bit of work, especially when they return for no reason. Like, I changed my mind. And one of my favorites was, I didn't mean to order it. I thought, how do you order something without meaning to order something? I'm sorry, I don't mean to rant. But these are things, this is a business policy that I've been thinking about, and I made that change, and I've got my fingers crossed, and I'll let you know how that affects me. And I think it'll be positive because I know myself. I thought, well, for one thing, I almost never return anything that I buy. I'm very careful when I buy it. I probably don't order nearly as much stuff online as a lot of people do. So, and the main thing I buy are groceries. And I know you can order those online too, but I don't do that. I want to go see it and smell it and feel it and all that. So anyway, that is something that is a big change that I've made. And there again, experience taught me that, doing 60-day returns, no questions asked, I pay for everything. I don't think that makes sense, at least not in my opinion. Now, everybody's different, and depending on the volume you do and everything, you may decide that it's just not, that you need to do that to be competitive. But, I'm trying to buy unique items and give a great price on them. And I tend to be right below the average on my pricing. I feel like that's a good place to be. And so, I'm competitive, and I'm still going to make enough money. And that's the tricky part, is figuring out your margins. But I think to sort of summarize this, if you'll keep in mind that knowledge is power, that life begins at the end of your comfort zone. So you got to take a little risk every day, maybe a little bit of an ego risk. You got to learn something new every day. These ideas will serve you, and there is no substitute for experience. As an older person, you've got experience in customer service, either as a customer or as the person providing a service. And there is no substitute for that. I know that I take good care of my customers. I was a customer service manager for a while, and I was in sales a long time. And boy, you learn a lot doing that. And I bring all of that to the table in this business. And while I can find myself sometimes feeling particularly lazy on certain days, and when I feel that way, I just coast. And there's nothing wrong with taking time off. In fact, one of the things I love about eBay is I can put my store, I can close it and go somewhere for a few days. That's wonderful. A lot of people don't feel like they can do that with their businesses, in fact, a lot of things that I've done in my past, I never felt like I could do that. So I think there's a lot of wonderful things about reselling, and I think people that are older are particularly suited for it. Not only do you completely understand vintage and retro and some of the older styles, you know them because you lived them and you wore those clothes. I think especially in clothes, but really even in home decor and stuff, things, go in and out. As far like mid-century modern's been in for a while now. But when I was first leaving college and getting my first place and all that, I remember dark furniture was all the rage, kind of dark, formal looking furniture. And that's what everybody bought back then, And now it's changed and shifted so much. And, when I was a child, I was living the mid-century modern to a point because it was kind of the Leave It to Beaver kind of household looking type of decor. But it's fun, it's interesting, and I think something that you're really going to find comforting is when it's time to do your taxes for the first time. Just make sure you have your receipts. You will be surprised at how much you can write off. And of course, I'm no accountant. I'm not giving any advice. And in fact, I don't even like that part of the business, bookkeeping, but get a good accountant or a good TurboTax or whatever your particular thing is. And you'll be surprised at how many things you can write off. You can write off mileage on your car. As long as you're doing business while you're out there, you have to keep up with the records and everything. So get yourself set up. In fact, if you're just getting started, I would go see an accountant right now, and they can get you so you're set up to keep your receipts, follow your mileage and things like that. And a lot of them will tell you need a different account for your business and your personal account. That's what they told me. But anyway, I enjoyed talking to you, and just keep in mind that the things that are the most important for success in reselling are things that you know already from all your life experience. Take care. Bye-bye.